Hello and welcome to Real Men Feel. I am your host, author, coach, and healer, Andy Grant. Please visit theandygrant.com to learn more about me. Real Men Feel exists to remind men that they are human beings and that they have the right to experience and express all of their emotions. We have conversations that most men are not having, but that all men can benefit from. My guest today is Gao Motsemme. Gao is an amazing woman. Gao speaks English, German, and Setswana, is a mother of 3, a psychic surgeon, and embodiment queen, devoted to helping individuals break free from patterns of generational toxic relationships and imprints, tap into unwavering self-love, and radiate true confidence so that they can crush it in the boardroom, the bedroom, and beyond. We have a great discussion on energy work, initiations, inner child work, ancestral healings, and more. Gao says that 80% of the issues any of us have are rooted in our ancestry. If you don't heal that generational trauma, you won't be able to express your soul's uniqueness. By the way, in case you're listening and not watching, I'm wearing my custom t-shirt that says Vulnerable AF, which you can buy for yourself at realmenfeel.org/swag. It gets mentioned later. That's the only reason I mentioned it. Let's do it. Hello, Gao, and welcome to Real Men Feel.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to talk to you. You do a lot of incredibly interesting things. First, I want to know what got you interested in the first place with generational trauma and ancestral healing?
That's a great question. And I want to start first by the greetings because it activates something. So, dumelang, lokai. And in my native language, dumelang means agree. Lokai is where are you? And since we are here in Real Men Feel, the name explains itself, is very clear. So my question, whenever you're listening to this, whoever is listening to this, is what are you agreeing to? When you come into Real Men Feel, what is it that drove you here? What is your intention? And when I say lokai is where are you? Are you fully here, connected to your body, listening to your body, or you coming through with an agenda? You still holding into what happened. So with that said, just as we beginning, my invite is may we connect to the body and just feel every sensation, the pain, whatever that is coming through. It's okay for us to be in the body. So that's my invite. And as we are connecting, because this is the first time I'm meeting Andy in this conversation, and this is the first time I'm meeting you, even though I'm not with you physically, but energetically we are connected. So may we choose not to know, because I truly believe Andy has invited amazing guests before, and you know a lot. But in this moment, let's assume we do not know. Let's choose not to know and allow, instead of us telling the mind what that means or what is being said, let us allow the mind to interpret it for us. That is, we're gonna listen to the body, we're gonna lean on the body. So that's kind of like warming up. And with the question that you asked, what drove you to this? The reason why I love starting with asking you, what are you agreeing to and where are you? It's because what we seeks us, And the problem is we live in a world where we often listen out there to what we are or what we need to do rather than learning to know ourselves and following that inspiration that is within us. So for me, when it comes to being a healer, it's something that I've known as a child. And I still remember when I spoke to my family and I said, this is my experience as I was experiencing my dream world and a lot of visions that were coming through. And I was just told, oh, you need to go to church, because otherwise you're going to end up being a traditional doctor. So with that said, it's kind of like I was confused and I tried to follow what the family is following, but it was not in alignment with my spirit. It didn't turn me on. So then I went through life, living, experiencing it through my family, through the society. And I would say I was introduced firsthand to the dysfunction of the family, which as I was doing my work or even when I was letting go of who I thought I was, fully embodying who I am, that's when I realized that it didn't really start here. It's come somewhere else. And I was even brought to this, even including the name, where the question that I was asked was, do you really know who you are? Do you want to know who you are? And I said, yes. And as I say that, I went into this deep trance where I started saying my name, but I couldn't say the second name, which was called after my father's sister. And it was like the more I tried to push through, another portal opened, and I just saw how I was received. Basically, I was not accepted because my father's family had a problem with my mother, like background where she comes from, is kind of like looking down on her, and now being called after them is kind of like, I don't know about that. So I would say it's something that my soul was here to be do and experience, even though I was an accountant before. But for me to let go of that, it was life happening, but life was bringing me to this now moment.
What age were you when you had this experience?
With the name or
With no being asked, "Do you want to know who you are?"
I was in my late 30s. In my late 30s, because I was going through, like, I already embraced this work, but somehow I was going through a moment where I would say my life was changing in the sense of I was going through a divorce, so when I was going through that, it's kind of like it was deepening, and I got to experience my mom's marriage and experience that, oh, I'm also creating that. And I went back, even when it comes to, especially when it comes to us being ourselves, the emotional, even the experience that comes through, it's kind of like we all feel like we are not accepted somehow, and we're always seeking that acceptance. And when we look at it, it's kind of like, where does that come from? Is it because of what I did or what happened in my life? But when you look at it, it's kind of like this thing began before you were even born. So this is when the influence came through. It was in my late 30s when I was going through my divorce. Yeah.
And so how did you go about to clean up your own ancestry and then learn how to, I assume you then to help other people do the same thing?
Yeah. That's a great question. Let's say when this came through, I already knew, but it's kind of like what was brought to my awareness was like, this name right here, you are not in alignment with it. But going back to how I learned to do this work, I would say it's something that I did, but I did it unconsciously. So when I look back at the pain that I felt, the anger, that was actually basically my father's anger. So that was my base when it comes to my base emotion. I was living through anger. That's what I was expressing. And going through toxic relationships and all that. It was me who connected how everyone was feeling, because even as a child, I was called the crazy one. So it's kind of like the whole family was normal and I was just a crazy one. And for me, when it came to my awareness that there is something deeper here, actually, I was told by a lot of people growing up and who were able to read and all that, like, you are here for a bigger gift. When I first lost my corporate job, I went to this other lady who just came into my vision, and I went to see her, like, I've seen you, so I'm wondering what is here for me. And she just told me that some of these things that are happening is because there's a purpose that you're meant to fulfill. So the more you refuse who you are, the more life is going to be chaotic. You're going to lose the job. Your relationships are not going to be okay. So I've along all that, when it came to my awareness that something big is happening, my mom was sick. It's before she passed on. So one day we were just sitting, and then all of a sudden, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm sick. I've got this pain. And I started feeling that pain. I was just like, oh, I think I have a problem that you have. But I didn't know what the problem is, but I know that I was in deep pain. I was like, I'm going to go to the hospital. Then she looked at me and she said, that's my pain. I was like, I don't know how the fuck you're alive with this pain, because this is death right here. So that's when I knew that somehow I'm taking this, I'm absorbing all these people's things, I'm taking all these things. And only later to learn that when I do the healing, I kind of like step into people's auric fields. And then whatever that does not need to be there, I kind of like remove it. This is why I call myself a psychic surgeon. I scan the body, which is basically, it's kind of like the body speaks to me. When I connect with somebody, I'm being called to where whether there is pain or emotional, physical, mental, or some spiritual issues. That's what caused me first. And that's what needs to be removed for the first of all in place.
Hmm. So I'm involved with something called the Modern Mystery School, which relies on ancient healing techniques going back thousands and thousands of years. I've also had the pleasure of visiting Africa twice and plan to again. So there's one phrase in your website that really attracted me to you, and that's and I'd like you to describe what this means for people. But African ancient quantum medicine. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. That's exactly like you said, that's what I described. And when we are being called, like for instance, I was being called to do this. And at first, what kind of like especially when I don't know how I got to this side. I remember I was listening to this other woman was speaking about connecting to angels and talking about dreams. And I got excited because I was like, that's my experience. But the part of me was excited because I was like, I want to connect to angels too. Because when I look at my background with the whole religion, it's kind of like I'm gonna be accepted and they're gonna see me as, this amazing person who speaks to angels. But when I tried to follow that path, it's kind of like everything shut down. I couldn't connect deeply with my kids. And then the message that came through, because I was like being spoken to either through dreams and all that first thing before I knew anything about meditation. The way to receive this information was through my dreams. So I was guided to say, go back to your roots. It's whatever, but when I looked at it, even the way it happened, it's kind of like I was going through different initiations where I'll find myself, even like the first time I had and sort of like connection with the other side. I kind of like went into a deep trance and all of a sudden I had the dreaming and the way relations and just the celebration and I was being welcomed home. And I started I'm not using bones as in like throwing bones like my ancestors did. But on the other hand, it's what I have. It's kind of like I don't have them physically, but I was given all these things. I received them in my initiation through my journey's vision, whether it was dreams or just sort of like being in a trance, but conscious of what is happening. So I received all of these things. And then when I started working with people, I kind of like knew what to do. But at first, I would admit that at first, I just knew like, okay, there's a problem here. And then it's kind of like I picked it up, but I didn't know how to transmute it. Because at first, like that's how they do it, where it's kind of like they just pick something. It doesn't matter whether it's pain. And I remember that one of the first people that I worked with, it's kind of like, it was like an entity, but it was sucking life out of her. She had pain in the whole of her left arm. And I took out this thing and I worked on this for a maximum of a week. But for her, when I came back to her tomorrow, like, how are you doing? Because I was up even at night dealing with this deep pain of whatever that was. And then she said, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it removes the pain immediately, just like that. So that's what I do. But then it's kind of like I went back into that initiation to say, you don't need to hold into it. It's kind of like, basically like fire. 'Cause that's how they used to do. It's kind of like somebody taking fire into their mouth and then they transmute it. That's kind of like how they used to do the work. But I do it and it's not conscious. It's kind of like I just get to show up and be present. And as I'm going through the body and the mind is kind of like I'm just speaking for us to give the mind something, but I can do it even without saying a word.
Hmm. So your initiations are really spontaneous
Yeah.
things. It wasn't like you took a program somewhere. Yeah.
No,
They just,
it wasn't.
cool.
It was like just something that was meant to happen even before I even fully agreed to it. I had, when you connect with people. I was working with people, like not physically, and where times I would meet people who were just telling me that we are sent to you, we're told that you're going to heal us, and I would wake up with these things. Like, I know this person, I was working with this person. So it's kind of like I'll meet them in higher realms. And then the following day when I ask, but what am I supposed to do with this person? Because a part of me is still holding into that because I know that I need to help this person. It's kind of like you get to sit and being intentional and connect with that person and complete whatever that needs to be completed. So I did this work energetically before I even started doing it physically.
And do you need to be physically present with someone to do your best work, or can you be anywhere and just remotely connect energetically?
I don't have to be with them personally. That's the magic thing with energy because it transcends time and space, you know. And
Mm.
here's the thing, even like the flipping crazy thing. I remember with this other person that I know, and the other time I just had, you know, I'm aware at times when my soul is kind of like leaving the body. So I left and I was aware where I was. So I'm working on this person. It's kind of like they consumed something. So I was busy clearing that body, like allowing the I would say poison. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's more like a traditional thing where somebody did something and added something into their food, whatever, some dark energies and stuff. So I started cleansing that body, cleansing that body, cleansing that body. And then the following morning, I just sent them a message that I don't know what is happening. Probably you need to go and find help somewhere, but I did the best that I can. And guess what? This person who was sick, when he went to the hospital, what he received was he went to the hospital and he went to somebody who is working with people. And what they told him was like it's kind of like whatever that was meant to happen, he nearly had a heart attack. but it was not really, it was not really like a heart attack that was meant to happen. It was meant to be caused by this thing. But somehow I was just led to this person, and I cleaned his body to release like the more of the potent toxicity from this, whatever that was infused in his body. And I released it, and then the rest was just nothing much. It was just cleared. Yeah.
So, Gao, I know that you work a lot with sexual energy.
Hmm.
So, how is sexual energy different from sexual activity?
Absolutely. Because when it comes to the sexual energy is the life force energy. Is that energy that flows through us, is that energy that I would say make us come alive. For us to fully alive in our body with vitality and excited about life is when this energy is flowing. But when there is a block, then there is kind of like holding back, depression, suicidal tendencies. And it's quite interesting because as I'm talking about suicidal tendencies, there I go. Most people don't realize how they are with these thoughts and all of that until they do the work. That's when they realize that I was completely gone. So when I look at the sexual energy, and it's quite interesting because often before I even get to the sexual energy, interesting enough, the inner child is often what comes through. I don't even know how to explain it, but when I'm working with somebody, no matter how they think everything is fine, I'll first be led by the inner child, or the inner child will just come through. And when I connect with this aspect, somehow it will show me exactly what happened. Whether that is sexual abuse or some shame, guilt, and all that happened. And as I said, one of the big things when it comes to accepting who we are, it's being disconnected from this energy. Because we live in a world that I would say, in one or the other, it's disempowering. When it comes to us being ourselves, especially sexual energy, it's like the natural thing. No one is just told that, oh, we're going to program you now to start feeling the desire to a woman, to a man, or whatever. It's kind of like something that happens naturally. But then when it comes to the world that we live in, I understand there is darkness around this energy, but the darkness is coming through because it's something that is put somewhere in the corner. So the religious system, tribal, societal, a lot of things, even medical, they're always telling us who we are, how to feel. We don't connect with that. And especially when it comes to men, it's like somehow they don't know what to do with this, and they're learning all these things from porn and all that. And the fact that they're not also able to feel that emotion, kind of like they're using sex as I'm going to release something, I just have sex because they don't want to feel something. So whatever that is building up, if I have sex, kind of like I'm just going to release that. So they don't get to connect with it at a level that they're meant to. Because for me, when it comes to a sacred masculine, is the person who is able to be with themselves, to feel and also to embrace all this beauty that comes with this energy. So an activity is kind of like I'm just gonna penetrate somebody and then fast, and then I come. That's it. But when it comes to sexual energy, is connected. Like I said, it's connected to our desires, like our purpose. It's connected to our creativity. It's also connected to it's a healing energy, and it's also connected to the beauty. For somebody to sit and embrace, whether it's the other partner or fully connect to whatever art that they're creating, or see the beauty in life, you better be connected to this energy because it's what drives you. Even when you're talking about creating, you are driven towards something, you're inspired by something, rather than when you are running away from something, the desperation. Something is happening, I've got to run away. That is you not being led by this magical creation energy.
Right. So there's darkness there, but it's not innate in sexual energy or in our life force. The darkness comes from trauma and abuse and things
Abs-
outside of our core selves.
Absolutely. And it's quite interesting because the other time I got to connect with the depth of this energy, because even when you're talking about like sexual energy is connected to our gifts and all that. And when I look at patriarchy, as I say, patriarchy made men powerless by shutting off their hearts, and it made women powerless by shutting off their womb. For you to control somebody is to disconnect them from their roots and to disconnect them from their heart, especially when it comes to a man who is led by what does the society want. You are not led by who you are to yourself, but who am I being to the society? What is it that esteems me, which is more outside, and that which validates you controls you. So the land darkness about this energy is what patriarchy taught, I would say, both men and women, And when you look at it, because when you're talking about that patriarchal wound, is the disconnection from the self. It's also wanting to have power over something or somebody. So when you want to have power over something or somebody, it's not power at all, because power is more leading yourself. When you have power over yourself, you can have power over any circumstance. So that means you're gonna lead yourself, you're gonna connect to yourself, you're gonna know who you are, rather than trying to understand what is outside or how I can oppress or get power over something. It's more like, how can I work with this magic that is within me? Because whatever that when I look at this energy, especially the sexual energy, I compare it with the plants, especially when it comes to traditional doctor or working with the plants as in like healing plants and all that. When you respect the plant will respect you, and it will open up to you to show you what it's capable of. And this sexual energy, because it's more connected to that feminine energy, which is like chaos, because it has that power. I would say it has the power to heal. Also, it's connected to the emotions, which also it has the power to liberate, and it can also drown you. This is why at times people are caught in this whole sexual like addiction and all that, because they do not know how to work with themselves. So it controls them. Some are afraid of feeling the emotions because they're afraid of being controlled. So it's like in the mental aspect, it's kind of like, I don't want anyone to have power over me, or I don't want to be drawn by this. So the whole shutting off of the woman's womb and the man's heart, it was more like to control something. But on the other hand, it has worked both against us, both of us. So the only way is for us to go through it to get to understand it. That's when we're going to be liberated. When we run away from it into all this chaos that we are now dealing with, because we are dealing with a chaos that has existed for many generations. It's not what we cause. 80% of the stuff that we're feeling, that we're dealing with, is mostly ancestral energies, is what has happened for many generations.
80% of what an individual is dealing with is ancestral.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so what we're saying is that men get separated from their heart. They're not feeling their emotions. They're not really in touch with their life force. So in order to feel more alive, they will attempt to control people outside, others.
Yeah.
Mhm. And this means that so leadership isn't just a position, it's not a job. Ideally, leadership is about leading yourself first.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. You can't have power. For me, when we talk about a leader is somebody who lead themselves. And when you lead them, when you lead you, other people have a choice. Are you the leader that I want to follow or not? You don't coerce people to follow you. That's by control. But now it's actually very clear, for you to have any power is when you have power with you or over yourself. Because where we are going is more like influential. You're going to show up. This is why I'm big on presence. Because when somebody's connected to themselves, they lead not even by words, because even when you look at communication, like 7% is the words, but 55% is like the nonverbal, and 38% is tonality. That means your presence, even though you may not be saying anything, your presence, your energy is communicating. But what is it that it says when you get into a room? Do children run away? Do women feel safe because of your presence?
yeah, whenever I meet someone and they don't understand energy, I just like we've all had the experience of walking into a room and there had been a fight and you didn't see it, you didn't hear it, but you can feel that heaviness, you can feel that energy. And the same at a party. If you walk up to a group of people and they're all laughing, you get in and you start laughing too, but you missed the joke. You don't even know you don't know what's funny, but you still pick up that energy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Cool. So since we've been touching on masculine and feminine, what are some misconceptions around people attempting to integrate their masculine and feminine energy?
First thing is like we think like this is more like gender based, first thing, but it's not. We all have that within us. And what is quite interesting, especially when it comes to the feminine and masculine energy, how we relate with ourselves, or the conflict that is within us, the conflict that the masculine and the feminine has within us, is what is going to be playing outside. I'll just give you an example with myself where, like I said, I was raised in a family where my father he had his own addiction. He was physically present until I was 14. That's when he passed. But emotionally, he was not available. So for me, when it comes to the relation, my father loved me. Come on, he did. I don't doubt that even as bit, So when somebody says, oh, your father, bullshit. But when I look at life, the way life was playing out was telling me that there is something here. So because my relation to the masculine was more of the emotional unavailability, and then whatever chaos that was forming, even the whole alcohol addiction and stuff. That was my relation with even men that I attracted in my life. I attracted men who had a history of alcohol addiction. I attracted men who I would say they really loved me as my father did. But on the other hand, it was more toxic and emotionally unavailable. It was not nourishing to my soul and the purpose that I'm here to give birth to. It was more that controlling thing. So whatever relationship that we have within ourselves with the feminine and masculine is what we see playing out with whoever that we are attracted to. Instead of going out there and trying to fix what is out there, is more like coming within. It's not gender based, because even when I say, let's say, when it comes to the masculine, I mean, my mother was more, I would say, more balanced, in the sense of, even when my father died, the masculine was still there, but still it was more the wounded masculine. So at times we may talk about the masculine being wounded, and when you look at it, it's kind of like, but my father was the soft person and all that. But who was the person who was more masculine? Because at times it can be a woman who the mother, but then she's more masculine, and she's more masculine. That means she's the one who's leading the whole household according to her own masculinity. So it's not necessarily based on whether it's father, mother, or whatever. It's more like who had more of that energy. Because even as a man, you can have more feminine energy, and you need to work more on the other one. Even though here's the thing as well. Even when you're talking about the myth around this, at times, like, there is more, the one that is more wounded, but on the other hand, it doesn't mean that the other one is not wounded. Because if the masculine is wounded, that means the feminine is wounded, in the sense of the feminine does not feel safe, And at times, when the feminine does not feel safe, it also judges this aspect. I don't trust you. You are like this. This is like conflict that is within. So we need to look within and also let go of the gender and just find out more, what do I relate with when it comes to even the right brain or the left brain. Because when you look at it, it's not only like feminine, masculine. At the core of it, it comes from the right and left brain, the balance of that.
So you mentioned earlier, especially talking about sexual energy, that when working with someone, when trying to help heal someone, that their inner child would show up. And so is that for you, is that a visual experience, just a sensory feeling, knowing sort of thing? Like what is your experience of that?
Like I said, when I work with somebody, I kind of like step into the auric field. So for me, when it comes to how this is expressing itself, it's kind of like I become that little, whether it's that little boy or that little girl, I'll feel exactly how maybe that little boy felt. And it'll show up in so many things, like facial expression. If at all it's anger, like it's kind of like that little child is there. It's like the third part, because I can switch and connect to maybe the stoic person who is like in front of me, who's gonna kind of like have my shit together. But yeah, deep within, there is this little boy who is afraid and whatever. At times it can be, if at all the inner child is overwhelmed, putting their hands on the things, kind of, I act just the way they act. That's like fully expressing how this aspect is showing up. I become both the adult and the inner child at the same time when I'm on a session.
And does that person get a sense of connecting with their inner child at the same time?
Absolutely. Because I don't get on somebody's energetic fields without doing anything. So just by being there already, I'm working on the energetic fields, and they can feel it. And at times someone just, it's kind of like they're looking in that mirror and then just seeing that aspect that they have denied. Because I've had people, no matter how far away they were, at the end they'll just end up breaking down. And it's kind of like, I was not even aware that this thing exists. It's kind of like it's bringing them to themselves. You understand? Yeah.
Yeah. So they've something in them, in themselves, always knew about this, but they consciously had never faced it, acknowledged it, recognized it, and
Absolutely.
perhaps weren't willing to.
Yeah.
So when someone does reconnect with their inner child, how does that impact their lives?
It changes everything. Because when it comes to the inner child is that aspect of when especially the word authentic is thrown around, like everybody authentic, authentic, authentic. What the heck does that mean? The authentic aspect of yourself is that inner child. Is also an aspect of yourself that at the core of it's kind of like the inner child has not forgotten who you are at your soul. The inner child has not forgotten your vision, like what you're here to express, what your soul desires to give birth through you. It's also an aspect of ourselves that I would say innocent, curious, it's compassionate, and it's also there's that innocence, like I said, and curious around it, and it's eager about life, the creativity, even when it comes to like imagination, all to connect with this, all this aspect of yourself, like this other expression, which is more like the feminine aspects, it's in that inner child, because when you look at it, even when it comes to the whole leadership and all that, and this is why a lot of people having this burnout themselves, they sabotage, when the inner child does not feel safe, then it's going to sabotage whatever plans that you have, going to sabotage whatever idea projects that you have. And when it feels safe and it can trust you, it's kind of like now it opens up for you to explore what is really present. So when it comes to emotional resilience, when you have not done the work working from the mind up, then you don't have the emotional resilience, because when things are shifting, you're trying to control, you are in fear. But for the inner child, it's kind of like it's that curiosity that comes in. It's curious about what it's gonna do. It's able to play, it's able to adjust. As we know that a child does not hold into grudges. We may be having a conversation and somebody's angry with it, and then after 30 minutes, it's kind of like that never. I love you, Daddy. I love you, but it's kind of like life goes on. So when you don't have that, we have not integrated that aspect. You are missing on this, and this is like also even having the muscles to go through life without being drowned by all the changes that are happening. So it changes everything, even when it comes to relation, right? If you are disconnected from your inner child, obviously somehow you are shut down. This aspect feels ignored, and you're gonna go look. It's kind of like you're gonna look for the love that you wanted the most as a child from somebody. You're gonna look for a parent, whether it's the father or a mother in your partner. You want to look for love outside of you. But when you are connected to yourself, first thing, you feel safe in your body. Your inner child feels safe. You know how to soothe. Kind of like, I can trust you. I can go. I can lean on myself. I can anchor on myself. Because one thing that I also emphasize, especially when it comes to creating whatever that we desire, whether it's our relationship, wealth, even spirituality and all that. The question is, what is it that you are here? What is unique for you? Because if you have not, first thing in talking about ancestral stuff, when you have not healed and disconnected from that, chances are you are healing, you are creating from the old template. Right? And when it comes to now integrating this aspect, it's kind of like you are connected to your unique signature blueprint. What is for you, not what you've seen your parents and ancestors creating over and over again. It's kind of like, who am I uniquely? That is your authentic expression, and following what really turns you on rather than what other people do. Because when this aspect is not integrated, it listens to what the mother and the father and the society and everybody thought it should, and often we deny, even when it comes to like whatever that causes this disintegration. It's because, let me say, I'll give an example with myself, because I say I knew I was a queen when I was like, just when I opened my eyes, I had this energy, and being me, it's something that my mother always reminded me that you are not like my other children, right? It's kind of like I had to be, because I come from a very traditional family, so it's kind of like you are just too outspoken. You have this energy that is out there, and it's quite interesting talking about sexual energy, because when I was a child, what came through, even when adults were like having conversation, it's kind of like, is she really going to finish school? It was already assumed that who I am, my personality, it's somebody who's going to fall pregnant. Like, before I even kissed a guy, I was like, from family members, even called a bitch when I was 14, before I even kissed, like all these things. So they create all that shame. And what happens is we deny this aspect, because it's kind of like, what do they want to see? So when you're talking about the shadow, or parts of us that when we're showing up being inauthentic and wanting to be accepted and loved, we hide. So integrating this aspect is like bringing this aspect and saying, you know what, who you are is magical. Because for us, when I look at this, when it comes to even our purpose is ingrained in our personality, like who we truly, whatever that we are meant to be and do, it's who we chose that personality. We chose it because our purpose is meant to be expressed through that. So when you are not being yourself, there is no how you can connect to what your soul really desires to express through you.
Beautiful. I wanted to ask, is there anything that you wish more men knew? But I feel like you just answered that already. But you tell me, is there anything else that you wish more men knew?
I mean, I love this podcast because you're saying real men feel. And for me, there is something about a man who is in touch with his masculine. Because a man who is in touch with his feminine, a man who is in touch with his feminine, that is feeling your emotions and being comfortable in your vulnerability. What a beautiful t-shirt that you're wearing. Because that's exactly that. When a man is in touch with all his senses, with all his emotions, it's kind of like giving other people around him to feel. But when a man is not in touch with himself, people around him are feeling lost. They do not know their place around this person. They feel lost. But when you are in touch, it's kind of like, I'm giving you permission to be yourself. Your children feel comfortable to be themselves and to connect to themselves because you are guiding them. And I love it when I say I help people to thrive in the bedroom. It's just that because who you are in the bedroom is also who you are being in the boardroom, because everything is about presence. When it comes to that orgasmic sex, because men love sex, we know that. But for your woman to trust you, to let go, you better be able to hold space, because the truth of it is most women are being traumatized when they're having sex because they are just allowing men to penetrate them when there is no emotional connection and when their body is not ready. And I know that at the core of every man's being, they don't want to do that, but they're doing it because they're not aware of that. But when you are connected to yourself, you are able to be present. And even if your partner is not fully in, you can tell that this is not who I know. What is going on, babe? And you can lean in and give them what they need. And it's the same thing in the office, where there can be some people who are forward and they're expressing what they need. Maybe something happened. They just force themselves to come to work. And maybe that wife is sick or something. Somebody's sitting in a corner. You are aware of your environment and you can check in what is happening, because this is not who you are. And you get to know. For me, that's a form of leadership in the boardroom or bedroom. And we need more of our kings to come and lead with us, because I believe a king has a space for a queen and a queen has a space for a king.
Excellent. You have covered a lot of material. What's the best way for people to find out more about all that you're up to?
I'm going to share a link with you, which is what I call Orgasmic Clarity, which is an introduction to African ancient quantum medicine. So I just invite you to book a call and let's see what's going to come through. And here's the thing that I really emphasize, and I also love that when it comes to working with men, because people often say men, okay, it's one of the conditioning that men do. They don't express themselves. And when it comes, especially when it comes to whether something is going on, whether it's sexual energy, I've worked with people who maybe they're just coming early, and it's something that creates that shame. But when I connect with the body, it's something that I connect with. It's kind of like I get to know what is happening. You don't have to explain everything. The body will communicate with me and I get to work with that. This is why my work is, I feel it's like very ideal for men, because I've worked with some people and I'm like, what is happening here? Your pelvic area? Kind of like, I don't know what is happening. And then from there, we've worked and then they went and tried. And it's kind of like, I didn't want to say anything earlier, but this is a problem that I've been having. But man, I'm a boy now. I'm back to where I know myself to be. So I love that, because it helps them to relax and not only rely on what the mind knows, but to work on the body. So it's up to you.
So we'll be sure and have that link in the show notes. And my queen, thank you for your time. Thank you for visiting with us today. This was fantastic. Thanks for everybody listening, tuning in. Please visit realmenfeel.org. There'll be a blog post for this episode. We'll have all the various links and resources discussed, ways to connect with Gao. Wherever you're discovering Real Men Feel, please subscribe, follow, like, share this with someone else, post a review or a comment. If you want to explore making your best life, you could book a clarity call with me, theandygrant.com/talk. You can always reach out to me at realmenfeel@gmail.com. And until next time, be good to yourself.